Hello, everyone, and welcome to the CMA and CMO webinar series. I'm Mike Wilkening, Communications Manager here at ARC, and I will be your host for today's webinar, The Online Shopper. How are they different across key retailers? Hosted by our friends, Shopper Intelligence. Now, today we're talking category strategies. As we know, building a best-in-class category strategy should always start with the shopper at a foundation, but accessing reliable data for online retailers can be challenging and it can be costly. This often leaves field teams without the insights needed to make data-driven recommendations. Now, today, we're going to be shedding new light on online shoppers and highlight the key differences across major retailers like Amazon, Walmart, Target. As we know, not all online shoppers are the same. And with the continued growth of online, it's crucial to develop tailored plans for each retailer. And so we're going to get into some of those best practices today on how to do that. Now, a couple things before we start. We'll be recording today's session. If you miss anything, no worries. It will be in our resource library, and we'll send a link out to that after today's call to all of our registrants. And we also want your questions today. Please use the Q&A function at below to enter questions. We'll be sure to field those and answer those within the call today. It's my pleasure to introduce our speakers today. Jason Smith is the U.S. Managing Director for Shopper Intelligence. He's led the U.S. Shopper Intelligence team since 2018. He's previously led category teams at Hormel, Colgate-Palmolive, and dunnhumby. Erica Reed is Category and Insights Director at Shopper Intelligence, and she has more than 20 years of industry expertise spanning Catman, insights, and category strategy for leading manufacturers, as well as valuable experience as a buyer for an online grocery retailer. Erica has worked across numerous categories such as vitamins, soft drinks, frozen food, and deli. With that, it's my pleasure to hand it off to our presenters to get started today. Erica, Jason, welcome, and the floor is yours.
Thanks, Mike. We're excited to talk with everyone today about the online shopper and try to get an understanding of how key retailers are different. Obviously, every category is unique, every retailer is unique. So we wanted to just highlight some of those bigger differences that we see in the data. But we're excited to talk with everyone today. You'll get to hear from Erica and myself today as we dig into more about the shopper. Erica, if you want to say hi real quick.
Hello.
Well, I'll kick off the initial section, just highlighting what we do at Shopper Intelligence and talk about online. Erica will dive into more of the data, digging into comparing the online versus brick and mortar shopper, and then diving deeper into Amazon, Walmart, Kroger, and Target to understand what are some of those key differences at a macro level. At the end, I'll dive into a specific example where we'll highlight one particular category just to show how some of these measures are typically used. We're excited to talk with everybody, and hopefully everyone gets to learn a few things that maybe they didn't know about the online shopper. Quick introduction around what we do at Shopper Intelligence. Overall, we are a market research company that focuses on understanding shoppers. We dive into much more around what motivates and drives them. It helps explain a lot of that behavior. So if you think of behavior, it's some of those what questions that are out there. What's the category doing? How's the performance of the category? A lot of times we don't understand what's driving that behavior. We don't talk to shoppers. Most of the data in category management from my past life is looking at the behavior and analyzing that. What's the panel data, the leakage, the loyalty data? We don't have enough data around understanding what drives those shoppers. And so what makes Shopper Intelligence unique is we survey all the key categories and all the key retailers in the US and also in many other markets. We run a similar program in a dozen different countries, including Canada, Australia, New Zealand, half a dozen European countries. What sets us apart is we've standardized a lot of the questions that we ask across different categories. So if we're digging into a particular measure, let's say shopper satisfaction, all those same questions we ask across all categories and retailers, it enables us to benchmark and compare things that typically you wouldn't be able to do. Most of my life, in my previous life, doing shopper insights, working in research was typically just done in my category, did not have context to the rest of the aisle, or it definitely didn't have context to tier 2 or tier 3 retailers. What we hope to use this data for is to help you understand a shopper from a retailer's perspective, how they would manage their overall business. This data is used to create more of a shopper-centric approach when we're building out strategies, and it aligns very closely with the 4 Ps in terms of price, promotion, placement, and product. So that's something that a lot of our clients use that for category and retailer channel work, but it's intended to be that fact-based objective resource that you can understand your shopper. That's Real quick on us, but some of the data that we understand about the shopper, we're going to talk about a few of these today, but we're not going to have time to explore all the different things that we dig into. But at a macro level, the category DNA, we have a good idea around the role of the category. How does it fit into the overall puzzle of that store? We also know the role of your category, not only at all the key retailers, but across all the key channels as well, because some categories, they have a different role at a drug versus a dollar versus a grocery. So that's important to know how your category fits within each retailer. We have another section, wants and needs. So this is understanding what's important to the shopper and how satisfied is the shopper. So we'll spend a significant amount of time today digging into that around what's truly important to the online shopper and what are some of those opportunities that we can help improve to drive better shopper satisfaction. Another piece is around path to purchase. So think of everything around that shopper journey. Was it a planned purchase? Was it unplanned? What triggered you to buy? What is the role of promotions? How well was it able to get you to switch brands or get you to buy more? So we have a lot of questions that dive into that. We're only going to touch on a few things on category DNA wants and needs. We've done other webinars where we'll dive into the role of displays and promotion. Today, we'll just barely glaze over it with a couple of measures, but just know we have a lot of things in our database that help us understand the role of price and promotions overall. And then the last piece, shopper profile. This is a little bit of a catch-all, but we do full demographic profile of all the shoppers that we survey. In the last year, we've surveyed roughly about 150,000 shoppers across roughly about 118 different categories. We have full demographics of all of those shoppers, but then we also have other questions that we've added over the years. A lot of our survey, we do this fielding quarterly, so we can trend it over time, but we also add new questions depending on current events that are happening. In 2020, we added a number of questions around the impact of COVID. In 2022, we added a lot of questions around pricing and inflation. What's that impact on shoppers? And then most recently in the last year, we've added questions around the impact of GLP-1 drugs, especially around some of the snacking categories. So that's the kind of the neat thing about our databases. We certainly have a lot of questions that we ask year over year, but then we add new questions depending on relevant topics that might be coming around. So these are these are the retailers that we are tracking at a macro level. For some of the bigger retailers, the mass merch, grocery, club, online, we're tracking over 100 categories within that retailer. So we know how your category kind of fits within that retailer, both online and brick and mortar. But we also have, in every category that we're tracking, we track it at dozens of different retailers. So we know how your category compares, let's say, Walmart versus Target or Walmart versus CVS and Walgreens. That's the power of the tool, is not only to drill into a retailer, but also be able to zoom out. And we also build out aggregates of channels, because certainly sometimes you're building out channel strategies and it's good to get that roll up of all shoppers within that channel. Now, the next chart's a little bit of an eye chart, so I apologize for it, but this gives you a view into the current categories that we are tracking. We add categories. We added 2 last quarter, actually. And you can see in the orange label, that's the department that the category rolls into. And then the blue are individual categories. So all of these categories, almost all these categories, we are in field every quarter. So we have the ability of trending the data and understanding how things have evolved during time. Now, today, we're not getting into a lot of the trends, more of just doing a snapshot to get an idea of what's different about shoppers. We do a lot of work around how things are evolving over time. And certainly the online has evolved greatly, as you'll see here in a few slides. So one quick offer that we wanted to offer up to anyone attending is we have another tool that's separate from what we're going to highlight today, but we're developing a tool that's certainly in development. So that's why we're giving people free access to this. But this tool basically scrapes the web and is able to capture what shoppers are saying and what industry publications are saying to understand what are some of those cutting trends by category, by market, by time period. So if you want to scan the QR code, please do now. If you download the deck, you'll be able to scan it at a later date. But this is just a free tool that you're able to go in and drill in and see some higher level view into your category. Some of the category structures are a little bit more, I would say, at a department level. So instead of dog food, you'll see pet food. So just something to note. It's just a slightly higher level, but it's highly valuable and it's free. So we encourage you to use it if you have time. My last slide before I hand it over to Erica is just setting the stage for online and talking about, obviously, the last 4 or 5 years, online has evolved. Certainly a major catalyst of this was COVID. That forced people out of the store and buying it online. Over the course of the last 4 years, certainly there has been a spike in online, and certainly some of the business has gone down, but certainly it has recovered a lot here recently, where online continues to grow over time. The overall online business is something that obviously retailers know they have to get right. but it's something that is very new. It's something that decades ago, it was something they didn't have to plan for. And now it's a totally different medium that they have to get right. Their competition is putting a lot of pressure on them. And so obviously a lot of their overall business is being pushed out to online. And if they, part of what we're going to talk about today is not repositioning your brick and mortar strategy for online, creating a unique strategy based on what is truly important to those shoppers. And so I will pass the torch over to Erica to get into more of the data.
Thank you, Jason. Part of our survey is dedicated to finding out what is traffic driving to particular retailers, and then also what is spend driving. So you can see here that the traffic number is quite a significantly higher for online. So that traffic number is actually a roll-up of 5 different statements that shoppers can see. And so that is a percentage of shoppers that agree or strongly agree. So the traffic measure is actually made up of things like promotions encourage shopping, the main reason I shop, that whether they wanted to benchmark, so price beacon, and also whether they were concerned about running out, which actually is quite high on the online front as well, as we found. And then, so some of the the retailers that particularly over-indexed for that traffic driving metrics are what I annotated underneath there with Target. Target.com shoppers were particularly likely to say that that promotions encouraged shopping, and also it was just one of the main reasons that they go shopping was to shop at Target.com. We also look at spend drivers. Spend drivers, our metric includes things like willing to pay more, buying extra because it's something is very innovative, or also just buying incrementally. Also because they just felt like spending the money or buying something, or because they were there anyways. So that's those 5 metrics roll up into that overall number. You can see again, online has much higher shopper metrics overall than brick and mortar. And then when we looked at what particular retailers were driving particular metrics, the Amazon shopper over-indexed on saying that they don't mind paying more. And the Kroger shoppers said that the .com shoppers often said that they often buy extra. So those were over-indexing type of metrics for those particular retailers. We also ask whether shoppers wanted to actually spend time looking, or whether they wanted to make their decision quickly. Was it more of a grab and go intention, or did they want to browse? And here you can see actually the majority of shoppers generally prefer, they want to just grab and go and make their decision quickly. Online shoppers actually over-index on wanting to browse, which is not too much of a surprise, because a lot of us just go on there and want to see, have a look at what the entire range might be on an online shop. We also can look at this on a retailer level, and this is where you can see where there are distinct differences between the online retailers. Target and Amazon shoppers are over-index on wanting to browse and spending time on the website, whereas Kroger and Walmart shoppers were much more grab and go oriented, wanted to make their decision quickly. And when we look at the underlying metrics that were driving that and where there were over indexes, Target and Amazon shoppers actually said that, because we asked them the follow-up question, like, why did you want to browse? Why did you want to spend time? And Target and Amazon shoppers were much more likely to say that they just enjoy the process of actually shopping on those particular retailer sites. Whereas Kroger and Walmart shoppers just said that they knew exactly what they wanted. They were much more likely to basically just want to grab and go for their shop. We also ask questions around hypotheticals. If you hadn't found what you were looking for, what would you have done? Would you have walked away and bought nothing, for example, or would you have switched? And within switching, would you have stayed within the same brand if you switched, or would you have bought a different brand? And what we found is that online shoppers were far more brand loyal. So not only do online shoppers switch, but they are also much more likely to actually stay within the same brand. So 30% of online shoppers would switch, but stay within the same brand, compared to 22% of brick and mortar shoppers. So that online shopper is much more brand loyal. And when we look at this, though, on a retailer level, again, interesting, 49%, so almost half of Amazon shoppers would walk away if they can't find what they're looking for. Whereas Target, Kroger, and Walmart shoppers much more likely than average to switch products. And when we can delve around a little bit more into the metrics that are driving that. It was Amazon shoppers basically said they would walk away and buy nothing, because we give shoppers the option to say, I would walk away and I would buy a different category, or I would go to another retailer. And what Amazon shopper said is that they would just buy nothing for the time being. So just much more in that browsing head mindset. We also ask our shopper survey questions around priorities. So what is important to you? We actually have a range of levers. We're just giving you the top 5 here. We can look at this on obviously a category and a retailer level. And these are the top 5 levers that are important to the shopper. So here for the all retailer average, you can see that number 1 most important lever is around quality. Shoppers are concerned about getting quality products. And then also the second highest, most important factor was around prices, and then brands, freshness, and layout. Those were the top most important factors for retailers. But when you look at it on a brick and mortar level, you can see that actually for brick and mortar shoppers, the most important factor was around price. And then the second one, then the brands. So are the brands that I know? So there's a statement behind each one of these. The actual full statement is around brands I know and want are available in that retailer. So that was number 2 for total brick and mortar, and number 3 was quality is a lot less important for brick and mortar shoppers, although it's still the third out of our levers. And then if we move on to online and Kroger, actually were the same. I just put a little stroke mark between the two here. So total online and Kroger.com shoppers, the number 1 for them was quality. And then the number 2 was freshness. And the third one was price. So price, although it is relatively high for brick and mortar shoppers, for online and Kroger.com shoppers, it was actually the third highest lever and factor in their priorities. When we looked at Walmart, however, price is the number 1 most important factor, driving that kind of value sense around things. But number 2 is brands. So they want to have the brands that they know available in Walmart.com. And then the third most important is quality. And then when we looked at Amazon, and Amazon was very closely aligned to the Target.com shopper in terms of their priorities, quality was the most important for Amazon and Target.com shoppers. And then number 2 was brands. Number 3 was freshness. Then came the price. So there again, we get that same thread going through all of it, that the Amazon and Target shopper is much more willing to. That was interesting. We also ask questions around satisfaction. And what we actually do is we use those same levers that you saw on the previous slide for importance. We actually ask how satisfied are shoppers around those priorities that they've given us. And then what we do is we weight that satisfaction number by the importance at that retailer for that particular category for that shopper. So overall, that then gives us an overall satisfaction number that is weighted by the importance. Here you can see in the top there that total online number, overall satisfaction, 59%. And the reason it's red is because actually online shoppers under index compared to the all retailer average for satisfaction. And that is driven by assortment factors and execution factors. So we actually bucket those factors, the priorities that you saw on the previous list. We bucket those into 4 buckets. Prices, for example, includes things like EDLP, value, and offers. And assortment, on the other hand, includes things like brands, whether there's innovation, whether there's range and choice in that retailer. So assortment and execution under index in particular for online shoppers. Execution includes things like layout, finding the category on the website, out of stocks, and whether they enjoy shopping on that website. And then what I've done here is just to give you a bit of a flavor when you look at this on a retailer level. We've indexed that to the total online number. You can see here that Amazon and Target shoppers actually over-index compared to total online for overall satisfaction. And when we look at price, also for price, they over-index. Interestingly, Kroger.com under-indexed for price compared to total online. And then for products, the product includes things like natural and organic factors, USA made, premium products availability, and quality is included in product. Target and Amazon shoppers over-index again on within the product metric, but Walmart.com particularly under-indexes on that product. And in terms of assortment, that includes layout navigation, as I've already explained. Actually, Amazon, Walmart, and Kroger all over-indexed on this in particular, and then execution, they over-index. You are probably wondering if they all over-index, then where's the under-index? Because you had an overall under. Well, actually, that was due to total food. So I haven't necessarily depicted every single retailer here. That's total food and drug. Shoppers particular felt that assortment and execution was not where it could be, and also Target.com shoppers not a complete under index, didn't score as highly as Walmart and Kroger. What we also do is we give shoppers the opportunity to ask for improvements. So we give them a menu, so they're not completely in the dark about what types of things they might want to say. And here you can see some of the menu options that we have. So we ask them, would you like to see more choice? So that's innovation, and actually innovation for online shoppers over-indexed and compared to total online, and that was the top most requested improvement for all of the different metrics that you can see here. But the dark blue line is total online, and the light blue line is all retailers. And actually, you can see just total online over indexes on shoppers wanting more of all of it. And so they're just much more demanding about wanting improvements. We also give shoppers a bit of an out. So we say, you can also say, oh, no improvement was needed on this for this category at this retailer. And you can see there the light blue for all retailers. So the average is over 40% of shoppers that say that no improvement was needed. And whereas for online, it's 30%. So only a third of shoppers said that no improvement was needed, roughly. And when you actually look at that on a retailer level, Walmart and Kroger shoppers, almost half, so 46% said that no improvement was needed, potentially not quite as demanding as, for example, the Target shoppers, because there only 21% said no improvement was needed. Target shoppers want a little bit more of everything, a lot more demanding overall. And I think now, do I pass over to you, Jason? What's on the next slide?
Yeah, thanks for passing it on. And yeah, it comes down to with this slide is it's a lot about expectations, because when you look at satisfaction, Amazon and Target were technically the most satisfied, but they're asking for the most improvement. So certainly it shows their engagement, shows there's a lot of intentionality with kind of how they're shopping and what they want. But most of the time when we're looking at categories, when we see a low satisfaction, many times we see a lot of feedback about, hey, you need to fix this, you need to fix that. But with online shoppers, it's the opposite. The satisfaction can even be good, and they'll still have a lot of feedback and things that they want improved, because obviously people, they have certain expectations. They want similar things that they have in a brick and mortar store that might be a little bit more difficult to deliver in an online setting. So we wanted to show one quick example of one particular category. So for anyone that works in cereal, we have a great example. We're going to keep it pretty high level. You'll have some directional things that you can take, but certainly not as specific into the weeds as maybe you would want to have. But overall, when we look, one thing we haven't talked about actually is, and I mentioned it early on, but we haven't shown it in some of the data because we were looking at online versus brick and mortar and some of the retailers. But when we drill into a category, we can rank any of our roughly 150 metrics that we are tracking. We can rank that metric in that category within that retailer. So if we look at overall satisfaction, and so this is here, I'll just explain real quickly what some of these things are, but this little blue bubble with the number 27 in it, it basically says that out of 117 categories that we track at brick and mortar and online, but this is just isolating the category within brick and mortar, but the category ranks as the 27th highest satisfaction of all categories that we're tracking. So overall, ranks in the top quartile. It's very good in terms of general. I mean, if we would want to drill into individual retailers to understand the health of the category at that retailer, but as an overall view of the category, it's very good. Ranks 27th. And I spend less time looking at the percentage and more around the ranking, because that gives me that context to understand how we're doing. But when I look at, let me just change my screen was blocking the right side of the page, but if we look at how the category is doing overall, and this is in this slide where you see green for execution, we're benchmarking online versus brick and mortar. So overall, execution is actually doing much better at brick and mortar than it is at online. And you can see the category ranks as a 13th highest satisfaction around execution. So overall, this is something where generally there's not much to fix. The only thing that's jumping off the page is price overall, which we'll get into a little bit more of the detail behind that. But then when we drill into, if we were to do that same snapshot for online retailers, you could see here that the rankings are very different. So you can see here where overall satisfaction ranks 89th. So if we lined up all 117 categories that we track in online, satisfaction or cereal would rank as the 89th highest satisfaction. So certainly it's in the bottom quartile now. So obviously there's some things that we instinctively have to fix and improve. And certainly there's a number of things overall in this category that we could prioritize and focus on. But when we drill into what's going to make the most impact, it comes down especially to this execution side. You can see it ranks very low overall. And it's interesting. When you think of the dynamics of the category, cereal is a unique category because in many stores, it has almost an entire aisle. There's a lot of space. Maybe you can improve days of supply and you can make sure everything is merchandised the right way. But for some reason, with an online shopper, we're just missing the mark. And so when we want to dive into this of what's causing some of this decline. And so this is, again, we're going to show this category in a brick and mortar setting and then also in an online setting. So I would say focus more on the rankings here because this is a philosophical thing that I want to share in terms of how we read this particular report. But what we typically like to do is not just look at satisfaction, but also look at how important it is to the shopper. Because what we find is if something is not important and the shopper is not that satisfied, it might be something that you still don't do anything about. It might be something that we just move on to other priorities because it's not that big of a priority for the shopper. And so one of the ways that we get an idea of what that priority or that importance is to understand where the category ranks in different levers that we have that we track on the shopper. Overall, if we were to line up all 117 categories and say which categories is price most important to the shopper, cereal would rank as the 16th highest category. So it's very high, top 20 category for price. But then when we look at how how are retailers in a brick and mortar setting doing on satisfaction, the category ranks very low on satisfaction. So this would be one of those things where ranks high for importance, low for satisfaction is it would be an immediate priority for us to start digging into how we can fix prices. Now, this can be done in a lot of different ways because a lot of it is perception, but that's certainly something that we would drill into a little bit more, trying to understand which retailers and maybe even which segments within the category need to be prioritized. Now, there's 3 other levers that I'll highlight in online just to show that contrast, but offers, which is around promotional offers, layout, which is once you get to the category, how easy was it to find your choice? And out of stocks, you can see here they have varying levels of importance. Offers and out of stocks are very important, layout not so much. But for satisfaction overall, they're all pretty good. It's all ranking high, top quartile, so very positive. These are things that we wouldn't want to fix. Where when we look at online, you can see here for prices, it's not quite as important to the shopper. It ranks a little bit further down in terms of all the categories that we track online. So not quite as important to the shopper. And satisfactions, I would say it's average, but I would also go back to it's probably not going to be a top priority to want to fix. There are other things that kind of boil to the top that we would want to focus on. And we start drilling into what some of those different levers are. It is offers, layout, and out of stocks. And many of the other online categories that we tracked, these are common themes. That's why we highlighted cereal. Is this category in some ways is a microcosm of some of the opportunities that are out there and online. Shoppers find, especially layout, this is something that it can be very difficult to navigate. People are buying a category in a new way, and so they're having to relearn how to find what they need. And so we want to make this as simple and easy as possible for them. But certainly out of stocks and even promotional offers, these are things that, at least in this category, at a macro level for online, are missed opportunities so far. So there's that. And then, so one other piece that we wanted to mention, and this is something that if you are able to download the deck, we built a one-page, it's a report card or a scorecard on Walmart, Kroger, Target, and Amazon. So I'll show you quickly the Walmart scorecard, which just due to time, I'll go pretty quickly just so you could see a little bit of the essence of the report. But if you have a little bit more time, you can dive into it on your own. But we tried to highlight the 6 major measures that we highlighted today. So traffic, spend, shopping mode, which is grab and go browse, desired improvements, walk away or switch, and shopper satisfaction. In part of this, we try to just highlight where are there opportunities, and then what are some of the things that we would recommend doing about it. And for instance, the Walmart shopper loves to grab and go. They're not as willing to browse. So when you're thinking of how do we optimize the website, that search optimization, making it as easy as possible, they're not going to spend quite as much time. Let's say you're searching for natural or organic, or let's say you're looking for gluten-free. You just have to have a lot of those filters and ways to make it easier on the shopper when they try to find something quickly. We have a similar report card or scorecard in the back in the appendix that we won't show today, but you'll be able to see it if you download the report. And in summary, we'll just highlight some of the key takeaways and leave a few minutes for some Q&A. But overall, there's an opportunity generally to drive larger baskets with the online shopper. So what we found, shoppers are willing to browse, they're willing to buy more, they're willing to trade up. And this is especially true at Amazon and Target. So it's around figuring out what shoppers are willing to do and want to do, and then try to build those strategies to take advantage of that. So then number two, most online shoppers prioritize quality over price. So if we think of what are some of those things that we need to be focusing on and prioritizing and showing to the shopper, it's about highlighting quality, where that would be more so in an online environment than in a brick and mortar. And so by understanding what's important to them, we can customize our strategies to make sure we're hitting on the things that matter to the shopper. And then the last part is satisfaction is not good enough for online. This depends on the retailer. Overall, Amazon is the gold standard in terms of satisfaction right now. Now, this is across all categories. There are many exceptions to the rule in terms of drilling into departments and categories. But overall, just improving the overall layout and taxonomy and things like that, which we'll highlight in the next slide as well, but just improving that ease of shop and making it easier on the shopper is a simple goal. And that's when we get into our recommendations, it's getting the basics right in terms of online. So optimizing images, description, product information. I had an experience last week where I was shopping for a food product in one of the 4 retailers that we're highlighting today. And I went to click on the image because I wanted to look at the ingredients and the calories and things like that. And it was blurry. I couldn't see it. So I didn't buy the product. So just sometimes it's as simple as just having the right images and giving people all the information they need to make the right decision. The next action item, examine and improve your taxonomy and segmentation for filtering to enable shoppers to find what they want more easily. That goes back to a little bit of that. If somebody has celiacs and they're looking for gluten-free options, or they want natural and organic, filtering that selection and making it easier for them to find what they want is very important. And then check for product gaps by need state. A lot of times people expect to have everything. And so you want to make it easy for them to find all of those things that they want. The last point is around tailoring your content. As we saw, shoppers are looking for innovation. So how do we highlight the innovation? It's something that in a store, you can put it on an end cap. There's ways that you can put signage around to call out new, but it's very difficult online to do that, because unless you call it out to them, they probably won't ever see it. So how do you call out those new areas and know which ones to highlight to them? And then the last part is tailor merchandising and content to the specific online shopper. There are still many organizations that still repurpose their brick and mortar strategy for an online retailer. And what we always suggest is zooming in to that individual retailer and that individual online shopper, know what's best for them. So that is all the time that we have. We're going to leave a little bit of time for some Q&A, but we appreciate everyone's time. And hopefully you were able to see some things that maybe you didn't know, and you might have saw some things that you probably thought you already knew. But hopefully you learned a couple things new, but we just appreciate your time and just look forward to hearing some of your questions.
Thank you, Jason. That was comprehensive and interesting stuff. A lot to wade through. And again, we've recorded this. It'll be in the resource library. And certainly, if interested in this deck and other resources, certainly please do reach out. We do have some questions that have come in, and not surprisingly, because I think there's a lot of great stuff that was covered here. We got something right off the top that I want to get in front of this team. And it was this. There was a question about how to compare shopping behaviors between brick and mortar and omni-channel, and the question of whether omni-channel shoppers are engaging in more stock-up behaviors with delivery, or whether they're driving increased trips due to the convenience of click and collect. And basically, it's a broad question around the type of trip types that are growing both in omni and brick and mortar. Anything jump out, Jason or Erica, in terms of that we want to expand on?
I wish I would have pulled the data to be able to tell it directly. We track obviously online, but we know if you had it delivered to your house, we know that if you picked it up at the store, we actually have a lot of breakdowns into terms of store pickup or delivery. And we were actually debating before this presentation to actually even show that breakout, the online shopper, like the pickup shopper versus the store pickup versus the home delivery. There's a different behavior. I don't have, Erica, do you have anything that you remember as we were building some of this? Because I know we had some things that were some differences between the shoppers.
Part of our survey is around the mission. That's what this question is getting at. So is it a large stock up shop? Was it a main shop or a small top up shop? And we do have data around that. And we can also split it by pickup or home delivery for each one of the retailers. And then also on a category level, we also can track that over time. Unfortunately, though, we don't have that data split out available right now, but we could definitely follow up with you and give you some, if possible, give you some more information afterwards if you get in touch.
It's like anything with our data. We have a lot of categories, a lot of retailers. We have it. It's just a matter of what channel, what retailer, what time period we like to drill into. Whoever asked the question, if you want to follow up with us, we can certainly dig in, peel the onion back a few layers to see what the key takeaway is.
And Jason and Erica will connect the person that asked that question.
That's a great question.
That's one of the reasons we have these forums is to surface things like this. I think ultimately what we want to do is drill down and solve or some of the issues and questions that our members have. So I think this is a good one. So we'll make sure we make that connection.
Yeah.
A couple quick things before a number of questions have come in. We want to get to two before we wrap here in a couple minutes. The first is around how online retailers can better optimize their promotions. Jason, Erica, what stands out there?
Online is you have a unique ability to do things that you can't do in a brick and mortar store. So it's online. I've seen Costco do online only promotions where they definitely try to get people to try and gain trial on their online offerings. And that's probably the best way. The fear of missing out many times can drive somebody to want to try things like that. And any kind of limited time offers, you can create that time sensitivity where you only have a little bit of time. I think that's an opportunity. There's one that I know I've experienced with shopping at Kroger.com, and I know Instacart does this too, where they do flash sales. So there's special promotions where you're checking out. It's almost like the checkout aisle of online, where it's that last moment to get you to pick up those more impulsive items. And they definitely, Kroger knows what some of those impulsive items are, because every time I do it, it's like donuts and like a lot of things that you'd probably more impulsively want to get. Kind of, when I think of like different unique things, it's more of the vehicles that they could use and different tactics that online can do that brick and mortar can't.
When we looked at the data, obviously we can look at a retailer level at the promotional, some of the kind of spend drivers. And you may remember back to the beginning of the part that I presented around spend drivers, we had things like whether they often buy extra, whether they buy because something is new. You can look at a category level and a retailer level to then hone your strategy around that for online specifically, because online shoppers do tend, well, on a macro level, what you saw here is online shoppers do tend to say that they wanted to buy, often they bought more. But it's looking at it, what you need to do is look on a category level and then have an online only strategy, and oftentimes even an online specific for that particular online retailer. Because what we do find is that there are a lot of differences between the Kroger.com shopper and the Costco.com shopper and the drug shopper. You have to have a tailored promotional strategy for each one of those .com retailers that you're dealing with, because they are very different.
But the last thing I'd add is people will definitely buy more online. My own experience with the cereal category, since we were highlighting it, is my family, when we're in a grocery store, we only buy maybe one cereal at a time. But if we go online, especially some of the deals at our local Mariano/Kroger, they run a lot of multiples, and somehow we buy 5 or 6 at a time. And it only happens when we shop online. So it's that unique promotional ability of it's very easy to click 5 and have it in your cart versus you put 5 in your cart and then everybody judges you as you're walking around the grocery store. So it's just a little different dynamic.
Although you do want to be careful that you aren't just rewarding people that would have bought anyway, because then you then have a knock-on effect in the next few weeks and months that nobody's buying cereal for the next year. It is something that you want to be quite careful with. And actually, some of our data allows you to drill into that as well. That's always something to be mindful of when you are creating your promotional strategy.
This was wonderful today, Erica and Jason. This is great stuff. And again, to our members, those on the call, we'll have the presentation up in our resource library. Certainly we'll be able to share out this presentation as well. There's a number of resources within here that you can also scan and get more information for. I think there's a lot of opportunity here for those that attended today, and certainly hope you can make advantage of that. To our audience, thanks so much for attending today. We've got a busy webinar calendar here throughout the rest of October as we continue to ramp up. My goodness, we're already in Q4. But as we get to the end of the year, we know you have priorities and various initiatives you want to get out the door and goals you have. We're here to help from bringing the best in terms of best practices and also thought leadership like we saw today in glowing fashion. Our thanks to Jason Smith and Erica Reed. Thanks to all of you for attending. We'll see you next time for our next CMA and SEMA webinar.